I'm Diego Cortez, I'm showing Phil. Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Phil Laak, very entertaining, part 1 yesterday. We're going to keep going with him, and if you missed it, check it out on Card Player TV. See, I was going to turn it back even further in time to when you and Gus were roommates, in the sense that poker was going on. It wasn't what it is now, where it's
I wish
so popular. Isn't it somewhat ironic that you guys, who've benefited so much from this poker boom, you're rooming together, you're grinding it out in blackjack. Meanwhile, there's poker going on. You guys were you guys even talking about poker? Thinking about poker? Aware?
By the way, the amount of time we overlapped in the same apartment was something like 47 days. Because literally,
I got a lot of mileage out of it because it always says Phil Laak roommates with Gus.
Yeah, it's true, but it was only.
I thought they were lovers.
Right.
No, because there was a bunch of Danish guys in New York playing backgammon, and he and some of them at the same time as me. I was down in Water Street, and I was trying to get closer up to 60th Street where the backgammon club was. So there was 2 Danish guys, Morten Holm and Gus Hansen, and me, that were all looking at the same time for places. And I said, if you want to do a 3-way thing, and Morten wasn't so sure that they were going to get 3 bedrooms, and no one wanted to live on a couch. And I said, okay, well then, and then at the same time, then it all just like congealed, and with very short amount of time we were there, and Gus said, I want to go to Vegas, and he didn't know. I don't even think he knew the rules to poker, but he thought poker sounds cool, and he, instead of like reading a book or anything, he just went to Vegas. Like it was like he just decided. But that guy was great. In the morning, he would literally like he would wake up, and if there was like a head of cauliflower or something in the fridge, that was fine. That would be his breakfast. Just eat it like raw, and then like he would like find maybe a door thing that was like this much of an overhang on the bathroom, and he'd just start doing like. I can't even suspend my body, for 4 seconds, and he's just doing chin-ups, and he'd do like 100 crunches, and he's all sweaty, and he'd just take his guitar and go out on the street, and he might have had $4 on him, or like 40,000, you have no idea, you just drift off, and he was, and at night, he'd come home, and he would, this was probably predating the whole Snowy and Jellyfish and backgammon programming and stuff, and he would like be sitting there with charts, with random, he had already previously rolled out bunch of dice to get his own random numbers, and then so we didn't have to use dice anymore, and he would just have like charts of paper with random, and he would roll out middle game positions, and he'd play them, and then record the result, win or lose, and he'd take.
I mean, he was doing computer simulations without the computer.
Right, he was doing computer simulations without the computer. I was like, wow, and I said, okay, this is why I'm never going to be.
1870s.
It's like it was in the year 1990.
Also got a list of random digits instead of rolling the dice.
I guess that was 96 or 7, something like that, 90-ish, like that. And I realized, well, this is why I will never be a mutant genius backgammon player. I'll be solid, and then, hey, how about that Phil Ivey, the bets, the 1.8, the 1.2?
Yeah, what do you think of that?
This is what I thought. Somebody asked me what I thought, and I said, and the reason why was because I said, I can't wait till not only. I want to know that there's going to be a point in the future where I can say, yes, here are the odds of me winning a bracelet or whatever. Like right now, it's probably like 1,000,000 to 1 or whatever the numbers. It's like huge. But I want to be like one of those guys. What does it feel like to know?
1.8 to 1.
Yeah, to know that the odds are close to that. To be able to find the number and to be that good. Like I want all that. I want to.
It seems like everyone knows now. For the few who don't, Phil was taking action at 1.8 to 1 to win a bracelet this year, and of course he did relatively poorly. I mean, he had some cashes, but didn't come close to really winning one. And then when we were playing the 50K horse, there were only 4 other events to go, including the main event, and he was booking bets at 6 to 1 that he'd win a bracelet in the remaining events, factoring in the fact that if he got deep in the first event, he probably wouldn't be able to play the second or third one. That one of them was like a $1,500 event with like.
I feel like I missed out on action, but I'm deadly afraid to make bets at 2 to 1 against a guy who's making the bet. When somebody offers a bet, the New York committee gets paranoid. Oh, he's offering the bet. Okay, warning, danger, Will Robinson. Like I don't want to make the bet.
Well, one time at the bike, Phil Ivey bet John Jawanda that he would win that day's tournament, and he did. And then they bet again at a big number on the next day's tournament, and Phil won that one too.
Yeah.
So,
right, yeah, stay away from his
geniuses. Capable, that's for sure. I like the fact that Gus had the initiative, though, to say, I'm going to go and try poker. Was that the inspiration for you then to follow, or just coincidentally?
No, absolutely. The inspiration was this. I was at the backgammon club, and I had read all the poker. There was 3 poker books there that were not real poker books. They were like the way Backgammon for Blood was not a real backgammon book, but it existed. I was reading things like that were kicking around the backgammon room.
Published in 1930.
Yeah, it wasn't like, advanced hold'em strategies. And so one of the guys that played a lot of backgammon, and I could never figure out if he was a contributor or an earner. Like, I could never place it, you know?
Even with your statistics.
No, because by that was way back in the day when I first started gambling. That probably only lasted 6 months where I wanted to track the world. You know,
Right.
And you still have notes on Adam, right there.
I still have the notes. No, so I just there was one guy, and he said he was going down to the poker club, and there was nothing happening in the backgammon game right then, and I must have said no to that idea 2 or 3 times until one day he said, I was shooting pool last night, blah, blah. And I don't know if you know, footnote to the story, in New York, if you want to shoot pool, you either A, have to go to one of those places like Amsterdam Billiards and pay out that per hour or whatever,
right.
Or you go to a pool hall where it's 50 cents a game, but you can never get a game because there's a genius with a stick waiting to play the next game.
Right.
And he said, oh yeah. I said, there's a pool table at this poker club? And he said, sure, it's always sitting there. No one ever plays it. I'm like, you're telling me there's a place in New York where there's just a pool table sitting there and it's not continuously being used? And so I went down with him, and there, lo and behold, it was just sitting there. So I started practicing pool, and I went with him. It was at the Mayfair, and I went with him 2 or 3 times, and I never even went into the pool. Zero, but then I would hear the stories and whatever, and then one time he, right after that club, was going to another club. And I said, oh, I'll just go check it out. I know there won't be a... And that was the first time that I looked at a poker table and saw, and it was totally the domino effect of random events. So the reason why I started playing poker was because I randomly, the first hand I saw, this guy, and I don't want to say his name, but you know who it would have been. He called on the river.
I know already.
He called on the river. There were 4, it was like, it was ace, face, deuce, then jack, 9. And he called 2,000 on the river, which was the guy's last all-in bet, with a pair of 4s. And I knew, without knowing anything, because I played a little, I was like, you can't call on the river 2,000 when all, and the guy's a young kid, you can tell the money's important to him, and the 4s were no good, the other guy had 2 pair, and he knocked out, and I said to my brother, I was like, how often does that guy gamble here? The guy, not the smart guy, and he says, every day. And I was like, he actually said 4 days a week, because then it was only 4 days a week, and I said, really? I said, when's the next game? And he said, tomorrow at 6:30, but you got to get here by 6 to get us a chair. And so I got there at 6, and I bought him for 500, and I was the most scared, nitty, I read, I got one more book, and I read, and I was really careful, and because the games were so, people calling with, that I was able to win from day one on, and that was probably why I got hooked.
Phil, do you recall that I played the first session of Big Bet Poker? It was pot limit that I ever played. So I used to play limit hold'em, but you probably don't remember this, but the first time I ever played pot limit, Phil taught me a very important lesson about not slow playing when he stacked me or felted me in his terminology.
Was that at the Commerce? Or
no, this was way before that.
This is somewhere in New York?
The Dandelion Club. Is that it? On 41st Street?
There was one, the Dandelion Club was...
That sounds like some gay club.
I remember the Diamond Club was the first one. That was 25th and 3rd or something.
No, this was on 41st Street. Anyway, I flopped I don't expect you to remember this. I flopped a flush, and I just checked in position, and Phil only had 2 pair, but he hit on
You waited
turn,
till he...
and then that's when I got on all my entire
I don't remember that.
$800.
That seems to be the way it happens on high-stakes poker when I watch these guys are just waiting to give Phil the money.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to rewind my...
but I gave him infinite odds.
I want to rewind my brain and the conversation around about 4 minutes from now. So the original reason why I sat down to play poker was for money, but it literally was only about 40 minutes deep before it clicked and I liked it. And I wanted to and backgammon, the first time somebody taught me backgammon, I thought, this is my first exposure. I was like, this is a dumb game. You're moving checkers around a board and rolling dice to determine where they go. It's like, I discounted, and this was in high school, and my buddy a week later said, hey, that dumb, I just won $65 from so-and-so's cousin. I'm like, which, by the way, putting out the story, he never collected.
Right, that's another key.
But that story, I was like, teach me everything you know about backgammon. He sat down with me because I was like, I was going to win $65. I was making minimum wage then. And I was originally pulled in by the money aspect, but then it took about 4 hours with backgammon before I was like, wow, this is interesting. Cool, strategy.
This is challenging.
Challenging and whatever. But it was interesting that both games that I to die for love, would play $1 buying games, micro limits. I don't care, I have to have action, you know what I'm saying? Are games where I was originally pulled in from just a fiscal point of view, but the catch time was so fast. In fact, you can't succeed at anything unless you eventually get hooked on it.
So you still, I know this, you love to play, and you play.
I love to play. I love to play, and there are And yeah,
I think of you, of course, playing in the live games and using your own all
Bag
the
of
stuff that
tricks.
we've seen, your bag of tricks that we've seen on TV, where part of it is the show, but part of it you're getting a lot of information from people. You're throwing people off. You're getting people
No,
on
true.
tilt. You play on the internet too, or
I
'cause
played
see
on the
you
internet
as
a
old
boatload.
school.
I won. And I'm not going to name sites. Like anyone doesn't know that's what it's like. But like I did really good first. Okay, I wonder if I can do this in 2 minutes less. Okay, I'll try it. Bought in for 400, lost it. Bought in for 2,000, lost it. Bought in for 2,000, lost it. Bought in for 4,000, lost it. Now I
This is
said,
a good money
okay.
management, by the way. They always say if you lose, just keep
Buying in
doubling or more
Right.
until you eventually
Do
win.
one more step at the same and then
Right.
double.
Then
So I was
keep
stuck
doubling,
around
keep
8 or
doubling
10,000 when Antonio owed me 16,000. I said, you know what? Give it to me on an account, and he did. And I was every time I didn't for 3 months I didn't touch that money because I knew that I was going to lose it. And I said, okay, here's the deal, Phil. You're going to start gambling with that 16, and you're going to get back the money you lost earlier, which was 8, and then you're going to decide what to do. But if you lose the 16, you're done with poker because and the thing that motivated all
With
this
internet
was
poker, at least.
well, yeah. I mean, there was I was in Aruba, and there was this kid that was 17 and had rented for $50 from a kid in high school for an ID that said he was 18, and then he like had that for the Aruban, and he at the airport only won 12,000 for the weekend or a week. And the other two guys that were like 18 and 21 that had or 20, and they had the real ideas. One of them was MG Hazards. And they were all talking about what Hazard's only won 25, and he was depressed. And I was like, here are kids all under 21. They were all bummed that they all won between 10 and 25,000. And I went, oh, I'm going to learn internet poker.
Yeah.
And I started playing.
This must be beatable somehow.
And I did. I said, okay, the way to beat it is just what you do. You go start really small. And so I did 2-4. And remember, before I was always doing 25. I played that 2-4 game, 6-handed, until I could have 3 tables open and just know that I was going to win. Then I was so paranoid. I like won my 500, and I went to 3-6, and it was like probably like 3 months before I was playing 5-10, feeling comfortable. And then eventually that 16, it clicked, and then PLO started happening.
Right.
And then it was like, oh my God, because internet PLO circa 2006 was absurd, and I was making absurd money, and I got it up to. I got up to $500,000, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I wasn't playing the hours I should have been. Mm-hmm. My work ethic wasn't strong. I'm not giving up on online poker, and I plan on revisiting it. And but just that so much other stuff is happening right now with I haven't been playing a lot. Is this to finish that thread?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Your old buddy Gus wrote every hand revealed about his experience at the Aussie Millions. So are you going to write something similar?
No, you know what? I've been meaning to ask Gus, and I'll ask him right now. It's funny because he did that thing for many
He's at my
times. 5
table.
That seems
main event
impossible
last
to
year.
actually do correctly, but he did.
He was
Right.
in the main event last year at my table, 2 days. And every single hand he'd get up, walk away from the table, talk into his microphone, sit back at the table. And
That's got to be minus tournament EV, but
well, maybe
plus
I mean,
life EV because
we talked
No, I
about
think it's got to be plus EV because when I'm in the zone, there are times where I'm thinking, wow, what if I was recording everything? Because like there are times, and maybe it's just you're
it
correlating
makes you
with.
not miss anything.
Yeah, you're like
But
plugged in. You're like.
see, in my mind, and this depends on the individual,
Right.
having to get up and record it and never forget to do it and concentrate on that would hurt my concentration of what's going on when I'm not speaking to the recorder. It would just screw me up. Like I don't when I'm on vacation, I don't take pictures because I hate stopping to observe what's happening.
Like no, I just in almost like referring back to the old man thing. I was so aware of even this hand because the makeup stopped here and it was curling up. So at the table, I had to have my hand like this, and I had to hold with my thumb this part because it was peeling off here. So I was like this, and just being so
That
aware
kept you.
of one little detail like that made everything else naturally more attentive. And I was like, wow, it almost is like. I was like, wow, if you had the hand recorder or something, if you're forcing yourself to be minutely detail-oriented on one
That's
thing,
interesting.
I think, well, my brain's going to click and be in high. I was aware when some people at the table were aware of the ESPN people. Like, I was clicking. Everything was clicking because I was already in click mode.
See, I know that I'm better than most in terms of just being observant, not getting
Yeah.
distracted. But even in the main event the other day, all of a sudden they put the prize money up, and I looked at that, and then I looked back, and a really interesting hand had developed. but I didn't know who'd bet on the flop and who'd call, which was important and interesting.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm recording every hand, then I'm going to be like a laser.
I can see how that
which
can
is
make you
nice.
focus, but I think it could also just sap your energy.
By the way, why didn't Gus, question I haven't asked him, I wanted to read the book where literally every hand was real.
Right.
Jack deuce offsuit under the gun in a very, very aggressive
Every
game,
single
I
hand.
fold. Like, I want to hear him say, I had Jack. I want to hear every, and I want the in-between hands. I fold the Jack deuce, but now, seed 4 and 8 have this weird hand where 8 is, steaming a little bit because of what?
Right.
I want the
Paper
taste.
is expensive.
And even if he's not,
The book would be 3 times bigger, right, for every
for me
thread.
it'd be fascinating. Even if he's
Right.
not in the hand, what he observes about the people who
Right,
were in the hand,
right.
who played it, and so forth.
Right.
And again, I like to see every hand revealed when you play those high stakes poker games because I've watched every episode. I think it's
And they
the most
don't show
fun
enough of the
game.
hands. There's a lot
They
of
don't
hands
show a
didn't
lot.
yeah.
They don't show all, but they show a lot. And again, these guys know you for the most part.
Yeah.
But even
By the way,
though-
Daniel Lahe almost called when I had 10-7 of hearts, and it was king, and he had king queen, he had king high, and Negrano had a pair of deuces or threes, and it was like a flush draw on the turn, and then I don't remember the board anymore, but I had 10-7 hearts and I had air on the river, and I was first to go, and I went, okay, no one has it. And I just said, gotta bet 80% of the pot.
Yeah.
Danny is such a genius. I saw him later that night, and he was like, I saw it. They didn't show in the TV show that he sweated this for 2 minutes. He almost called.
and he was king high only.
king high only, because he just knew that if he called Negrano, who had a medium middly pair, would have to fold. And he just knew that I had a flush draw, and I missed. He just knew it. It was so sick. And it was a testament to how good he was, and the TVs didn't show it at all, that he was sweating. And he almost, later that night when he found out what I had, he just went ape in his mind. It was because he knew that it was wow. So you don't get the...
See, to me, it's fascinating that in that show, it seems like you get paid off a lot. And you're mixing it up, but these guys know your game. And nevertheless, I mean,
I think Gus...
you're one of the
I
big
learned-
winners in that game.
Well, I learned something from Gus, and it just offhandedly, he said, yeah, I don't care how many hands I play. I just want to make sure I jibble and jab with the beginning and the middle part of the game, But towards the last, middle, or towards the end part of the hand, if I'm shoving and things are happening, I try and have the best hand there. It's and I just realized, I saw him on TV shutting down when he was beat so many, and I was like, yeah, you can let your rudder open up a little bit as long as you just really, really, really attend to when you know you're beat. And the jibbling and all that stuff, it drives people crazy when you're trying to concede, when you're just like a c-betting machine. You're 100% c-bet. What are they going to, I can't do that in a tournament, by the way, because they're all internet geniuses.
Of course.
But in cash game,
It's working. One thing that on one of the episodes Gabe Kaplan brought up, which I thought was interesting, was how you would use these funky bet amounts.
right,
And-
they were correlated to the hands. And
Yeah, now, exactly. And the funny thing is, he said that maybe there was now a second or third level thing going on where
No,
they'd already
no.
showed the shows, the earlier seasons, and now people had seen you do
Oh, right, yeah, I remember him
certain
saying that, yeah.
amounts. So maybe now you've taken it to the next level where guys have seen that when you
And now
bet
they don't mean
77,000, you had pockets left. You bet 44,000 on the river, you had just fours. So now that you are using it against them, representing
Right,
the
hands with
8-6
the
by
bet.
betting 86.
No, I wish that I wish the little, what do you call
And I
it,
was
ship
like,
was aligned
this
like
guy's
that.
a genius
Yeah.
if he's really doing
No, there was
that,
nothing.
you know?
I wish I could.
And also
I
you're
would
really-
claim it if it was true, but it's
Yeah.
not.
And also, you're really counting on these guys being observant and actually following through on it and not getting on tilt. And it's
And that's
I don't know,
meta
Freddie
thinking on
Dean
the
and
night-
Sammy Farha at home watching
Yeah.
the TV going, next time Phil Laak bets that amount, I'm going to punk him. I don't know, it'd be fascinating.
No, I wish that was true. It's not. I will say this, that that high stakes poker thing. I heard or I read that the guy that took over the GSN spot decided that poker on TV was bad, and they have in their file cabinet shows, or that they own, that they've paid for,
Yeah.
and they're not even going to show
That's
because
a
some
tragedy.
guy says, "Oh, poker's is evil" or whatever, and we're just such a massive travesty because it was the highest rated show on GSN, high stakes poker. Why wouldn't they it's
don't-
not all dollars?
I really
in a
don't
sense.
know what's going on there and whether they have a different strategy or not. All I know is that show was the most fun,
Yeah.
most interesting
Great.
entertainment. And I know that it's not a perfect representation of what the high stakes
Right.
games are like because the cameras do affect the play to
Yep.
some degree, I
Yep.
imagine. But just that crew, you couldn't get together
Right.
better.
Like how about the Patrick Antonius, Sammy Farha hand, where you can just see the history has oozing out of these two guys.
Right.
Like they have a flush draw on one pair or something, and they're putting in
They're
400,000 or whatever. It's like, oh god.
That's also a great advertisement for poker in that A, highly entertaining. B, you watch this play and you say, these are the great players in the world. I'm flying out to Las Vegas tomorrow.
Right.
And it works on two levels. So
Yep.
hopefully it comes back, and if it does, you'll be on there, right?
I'm trying. Anytime, for sure. Like I'm
Of course,
a
they
junkie.
would want Phil, and of course, Phil is.
I will say I couldn't believe. I don't know if your viewers know this, but they paid us. This was ridiculous. $1,250 an hour. I mean, I'm ready to pay the $20 an hour that I've been paying my whole life, and now they're paying. I'm like, okay.
Guys.
I was
Yeah,
like,
not bad at all.
that was the best. That was.
Phil, you got to start working on your preparation for the main event. Try and do some more
Day two.
stuff and try and win.
I just
So,
want to. Yeah,
we're gonna
I also
release
want to
it.
apologize because I realized I may have offended some people. Yeah.
You?
I get it. That was called sarcasm right there. It took me a second to get it, but to click them. If I offended anyone or that anyone thought like that was like not fair or whatever, to be the old man, because it wasn't like I was wearing a wizard outfit and I went like this with the.
I thought of this on the way over here.
Man.
Screw them.
Yeah,
Screw 'em, okay.
It's funny because on the one hand,
I knew there was going to be a cost.
I know what the
like,
angle is going to be. I can anticipate this now. It's not fair because everyone else had to show ID to the dealer. There's no difference between showing ID to the floor man or the dealer.
Right.
You
Right.
ID'd yourself to a Harris representative. I don't want to hear any bullshit.
I can see where.
No. Actually, the Harris has a. I totally gambled, and this is what I saw. I literally saw somebody say, "I don't have my ID," and I was like, "Oh, what does he do? Does he not play?" This was like on a 2000 event,
Right.
and the suit guy said, "Here's the deal: you can sit, no problem. I'm going to pass it, but if you cash and you don't have your ID, you're not getting paid." And after that warning, he sat and everything was good. And that's what happened to me. I grabbed the suit and I was gambling. I was like,
good job.
"I don't have my ID," and the guy says, "If you cash, you have to have your ID." I said, "Yeah, it's at home, you know." And then it was all good, and he just sat me down. Like I just was
I
totally
thought you
gambling.
hipped the floor man to it.
No, I was
Excellent.
totally like, I'm just like, I had to gamble. I was like, because what are they going to do? Some old man like doesn't the suit just feel bad for you?
I appreciate that you're apologizing, but you did nothing wrong. That's all part of poker.
Right. I was
The
like,
funny thing too is like I do think poker is about deception and within the rules of the game, and there is a deceptive aspect here. And maybe even though that was your main motivation, maybe there is some positive EV in presenting this image, and especially with this lineup that you're up against. But it seems like it's all fair in the game.
Good.
If you go, if
I
I
got
show
the
up
blessing
tomorrow,
of Adam and Diego.
if I show up tomorrow and I pretend that I'm a big dummy or that that
I don't
I
have to
know.
pretend.
I mean, there is a line, and actually there was an incident that really upset me reading about it, where someone was pulling an angle, pretending they didn't understand the one chip rule, and
Right.
that to me is just a pure angle.
right. And by the way, I know a couple years ago, I'm not going to mention names, where in the 25K
Yeah.
Bellagio thing and the chips, and every year somebody's done that, and I would never do
They
that.
pretend
It
they
feels
pretend they
gross.
threw out the wrong chip.
Right, and they do the
stuff like that. And
that's a $10,000 chip. I
Right.
thought it was one.
And that's an angle. And
Because
that's,
that feels
to me is
icky.
just pure
Yeah.
unethical.
Right.
And whether it's against the rules or not, I would not have respect for someone who did that. But this, it's not an angle. It's part of like if I show up and I act like I'm a dummy.
Or
and
like
I
you
don't know
have
what
gold
I'm doing,
chains
or
and you're
whatever,
like,
I wear a suit
yeah.
or I wear track
other
track
people
pants.
other
Fine.
people make their judgments based
Yeah,
on that.
cool.
That's their
I do more
I
than
love that.
I do more than bless this, Phil. I worship what you did.
Dude, I love it.
Genius.
By the way, speaking of worshiping, remember how I know you think you're known for the King 3, whatever, King
Yeah.
Deuce, whatever. I was curious because I blew up. It was King 3?
Yeah.
Then I have a question. Okay, because with Antonius, he had aces and I had King 3, and I suicide impaled onto his aces at the diamond something 15K thing. I call it. And just about 7 minutes ago, I was waiting. I hope I can. Is it possible that like King 3 does a triggering thing? Because I was off suit
It
as
is.
well.
It's endorphins.
Is there like a thing where you're like the king is so good and the 3 is so bad that there's like trick that because we both did the same like
That's one theory. Another is that if you look at, and I do believe this, by the way, if you look at the 3 first, then you look at the king,
you're whatever.
you're not going to play it. You look at the king first, sort of think, I'm going to get pocket kings, I'm going to get pocket kings. Then you see the 3, you're like, well, I'm in.
Right,
You've
you
already
start
gotten
thinking
yourself
that
geared
this
up.
could have been kings.
No, you've gotten yourself geared up, and sometimes I've always thought it's funny. Sometimes people make a big call, like in all-in situation, and they have like an ace
It's funny because I saw the king first. And
They have an
hand.
ace X, and I think if they saw the X first, they wouldn't be as likely to call.
Right.
You see the
Right.
ace first, you start getting geared up to call, and
Right.
then you justify calling with.
I think.
with
Do you remember
items.
if you saw the king or the 3 first in your
No,
hand?
and I didn't call, of course, but we're not discussing that.
Right. We're not discussing calling. We're talking
See,
only all in.
For the people that don't remember, even though to me this is one of the highlights of poker of the last 10 years, but for the people who are not hardcore aficionados, Adam reached the final table of the WPT at the Commerce,
Yeah.
and they were down to 5 players, and Adam was second in chips.
Untrue.
And
Now you're distorting.
Okay.
Are you certain
What
you
was
weren't
it?
second
Third
in
in
chips?
chips?
No, now I'm either
He had
third,
chips.
fourth, or fifth.
I
No,
know,
but
he had chips.
Adam was second in chips.
I had only about 600,000.
And this other guy was the chip leader. And you know, one of the big,
That's
one of the
also
big,
not true.
One
Mike
of
was
the
not the chip leader.
one of the big rules in poker is if you're second in chips and you pick up a big hand like a king 3, you want to get in there against the chip leader. That's the ladder principle. Is
No,
best
you see
for
now,
first.
if you want to tell a story, you should tell it correctly.
I thought that was actually.
Guys, by the way, I would like because I don't want to. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
the details we're gonna have to. What we're gonna have to do is go to the tape. Go to the videotape.
I will bet you
As
that
Warren
I was
Wolf
not
said.
among the
Okay,
top 3 chip
guys,
leaders.
guys,
But-
I don't want to be the moderator that shifts energy, but
Adam moved in on a guy making a play. This part,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that. You're trying to get a guy off a hand pre-flop. He had king 3.
Yes.
To your dismay, he had
It
2
wasn't-
kings. And if you run through the computer, like
That's
the
not-
worst
that's not a
possible
good match.
matchups.
it's that 4.8%,
Kings
right?
against king 3. Because even aces against anything aren't that bad.
Any other
So-
matchup, I had nothing to hit.
But that's the thing, by the way, that the
No
worst
worse-
matchup is only 20-1. The worst is
Right.
king,
Yeah.
king
But
3
the
or whatever.
worst
Yeah.
possible matchup is kings against king non-straight.
Right.
You know, with the suits all locked
Right.
up. And it was like that sort of thing.
Here's the thing, by the way, if we're going to discuss this seriously.
Right. This is very serious.
It was a super tight player who would open from first, so I knew he had something.
Right.
But Mike would have.
Super tight.
That's the guy. A super tight player is where king 3 plays very well against his
No,
range.
it doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what you have if you get him to lay down, and he would have laid down jacks.
Right.
So it was just
I hear
unfortunate
you.
that I misread the actual strength of his hand.
Okay, now not to diminish the potency of this conversation is good, but I just want to segue into a really real fast trivial minutiae thing.
Okay.
Which is I bought this T-shirt a week ago and I really
Taurus
like it
T-shirt.
because I have been seeing the like Vegas glitz T-shirts on it, and not one of them ever hit the ring true. It has to be black, and I wanted like, and when I saw this one, I knew it was it
You
because I got
needed
Betty
Betty
Boop.
The Las Vegas sign, the famous
And then it
great
says,
sign.
"Are you feeling lucky?"
And it has the sign for Las Vegas, not the word Las Vegas. So
Right.
there's a couple of key features that make this now one of my favorite, not favorite, but bright, aggressive
I was wondering
favorite.
about that, yeah.
So I'm really happy. And I'd like to say that my T-shirt collection is now toppling at around 100 T-shirts, and I'm really proud of that. When I was a young kid, I would go into like a Marvel comic book store and be wishing that I was one of these kids that had this thing, which in 5th grade I found out the word allowance is when you get paid for staying alive, and I didn't have that, and I had to rake a lawn or whatever, and I was always like, wow, I wish I could have the money to buy like a Captain America T-shirt. And I remember that was like to me, wealth means I can buy T-shirts.
A boy and his dream.
And now you can.
So now I can, and I like buying T-shirts. I know where all the best T-shirts in New York, Yellow Rat Bastard, all the places. Online T-shirt hell, there's all these great places. And I am looking towards the next year of pumping out my T-shirt collection another 50 or so, because I was on some
Awesome.
T-shirt sites last night and saw
If you-
some really good ones.
If you win the main event, 9.1 million, you'll
Wow.
be up to 150 or 200 T-shirts by the time we
God, that'll
talk
be
next
great.
year.
And also, another thing that reminds me that I've arrived, or like I have comfort, is new socks. That is like,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, always using leftovers. Holes in
Actually,
the-
I'll tell you one thing. Socks is a semi-disgusting thing, and I read Jerry Lewis, your hero.
He never wore the same socks or underwear.
He's
twice.
never worn the same pair ever. He has a different pair every single
underwear.
day. And there's some. Well, actually,
that seems
that's
wasteful.
not crazy.
Though. I like to wash them and
No,
use them.
I think that's not crazy. No, you donate them to some
Oh right, you
railbird.
you donate to the railbirds.
You should just toss your soiled underpants into
The next time somebody asks you online to transfer money to their account, you turn them down, but
Say,
you
but
offer
I have
them
free
some
socks.
I have some
Right.
socks. On
Right,
that note,
socks and T-shirts.
on
yeah.
that note, we're all going to go and
I like that. That's a good note.
change socks and
yeah.
prepare for the next one. Phil, always a pleasure.
Thank
you
you.
provide a little different angle to
Thanks
the
for
whole
having me.
thing.
That was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. Send us suggestions and questions for guests at thescoop@cardplayer.com. And thanks.
2 bracelets. Awesome.
Well, these aren't easy to win. I remember this one like it was yesterday. My opponent had me down to my left. Sorry. Anyway, it's down to my last few chips. So, I had to call.
We play at FullTailPoker.com.